Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our study of Ruth. Working on Ruth 4 today, and there's some exciting stuff in here as always. So I'm going to start by reading from my Bible, Ruth 4. I'm going to start at verse 1, but I might kind of start and stop. So the first verse in my Bible, and remember I'm using the NLT, which is the New Living Translation, but you might be reading the NIV or the King James Version, so the translation will be different, but the content will be the same. Okay, so Ruth 4:1. Boaz went to the town gate and took a seat there. Just then the family redeemer he had mentioned came by, so Boaz called out to him. Remember, he has told Ruth that there is somebody closer related to her and to Naomi than he is. He's a relation, but there's somebody closer. So he's going to the town gate to see if he can find this guy. The town gate would have been kind of like our town hall. It would have been a place where business was transacted and everybody was kind of sitting around. The town business was discussed. There might be tradespeople there. It was a busy place, and he was pretty sure he could find this guy there. So he went there, and Boaz called out to him, "Come over here and sit down, friend. I want to talk to you." So they sat down together. Then Boaz called 10 leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witnesses. I want to stop there only because I think witnesses are super important in this story and in our faith in Jesus. Just that witnesses are important to God. He wanted to be sure, Boaz wanted to be sure, and also God wanted to be sure that this wasn't some shady deal. There were witnesses there, and witnesses can tell the story to other people, and then other people can benefit from this situation. So when we are witnesses, we're pretty important. Remember, even one of the commandments says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." God doesn't want people to be telling lies. He wants accurate witnesses that we can trust, and he wants us to be trustworthy. In fact, when God does a miracle in our own lives, he wants us to witness to that to other people. There's quite a few verses about this. I love one in particular in Matthew, which is Matthew 5, verse 16, which says, "In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." Part of our witness is our good deeds. God was kind to us, we're kind to others. The Lord loves us, we love others. That's part of our witness, is trying to act like Jesus would want us to act. And the disciples were witnesses, and in some ways we are also given the same command that they were given in Acts 1, verse 8. "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." Witnesses. Witnesses tell the real story. And so Boaz here wants some witnesses there when he makes this deal with the kinsman redeemer that's first in line, because he doesn't want anything shady about this deal. So then Boaz, this is verse 3, then Boaz said to the family redeemer, you know Naomi, who came back from Moab? She's selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech." So here's some new information. We did not know there was land. There's obviously some land that Elimelech owned. When Elimelech died, it would have gone to his son, probably Mahlon, but it's still in the family. And so Naomi can't own it. She has to sell it. And according to Jewish law, the first person that gets the first chance to buy it, it has to be given first, the chance to buy it from the closest kinsman redeemers. And then if that person doesn't want it, or the next kinsman redeemer doesn't want it, then it's open to whoever wants to buy it. Again, this was to try to keep the land in the family. So Boaz goes on and says to this kinsman redeemer, which we don't know his name, "I thought I should speak to you about it so that you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses." Here we go again. He wants it to be above board. do it right now. But if you don't want it, let me know right away because I'm next in line to redeem it after you. So he gives him this choice, and obviously he holds back the information that Ruth is involved. The man replies, all right, I'll redeem it. Hey, why not have some extra land, you know? He's right in there right away. So remember that he has this right by law. Okay, so he's going to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead. This Leviticus said I can do this. This is in the laws of Leviticus 25:25, that he has the right to redeem this property. So now Boaz is going to release a little bit more information. Then Boaz told him, of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow. That way she can have children who will carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family. Okay, so he kind of drops the other information down to him. And right away that's going to change things. But this whole thing of him buying this land and taking the widow with it is not something that Boaz is making up. If we look back in Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 to 10, this is very interesting regulation that God lays down for the people. He said, if brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears will carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. So, yes, when there's a widow, the next person is required to marry her, to father a child by her. But when the child is born, that child does not have the name of the father. He has the name of the dead husband to carry on that person's name in Israel. Now, look what happens if he doesn't want to do it. However, if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders at the town gate, which is, again, where Boaz went, right to the town gate, and said, my husband's brother refuses to carry on his brother's name in Israel. He will not fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to me. Notice Boaz is doing this job for Ruth. He is like her representative. He's standing in her stead. Again, another picture of Jesus, because he stands in our stead. We don't have to go negotiate for ourselves. Jesus did that work and proclaimed that we were righteous. So he is standing in the stead of Ruth, so she doesn't have to go to the gate. He goes to the gate, Boaz, and fights for her. So look what happens if he will not fulfill the duty of the brother-in-law. And the woman tells the elders this. Then the elders of the town shall summon him and talk to him. And if he persists in saying, I do not want to marry her, his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, take off one of his sandals, spit in his face, and say, this is what is done to a man who will not build up his brother's family line. And that man's line shall be known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled. So this guy is about to become an unsandaled guy. And because of that custom, taking off your sandal and handing it to someone became almost like shaking their hand. It sealed the promise. I'm not going to do this no matter what, and I'm telling you because I'm handing you my sandal. So here in this story of Ruth, we have an unsandaled man because he does not want Ruth. He just wants the land. Okay? So we're back in Ruth now, and we're on verse 6. As soon as this guardian redeemer hears that Ruth comes along in the package, this is what he says. At this, the guardian redeemer said, then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. So we don't know why this guy doesn't want to marry Ruth. But there could be a couple of reasons. One reason is, of course, that Ruth is a Moabite. And remember, that meant that in her family history, way back when, she came from incest. Okay? So maybe that's why he doesn't want her. Maybe because she's a foreigner and he doesn't feel that he wants to be married to a foreigner. That's one possible reason. Another possible reason is that he says that it might endanger his estate. So think about if he married Ruth, then any children she had would divide his estate with the children he already had from his present wife. So they would get less. And also then she and her sons would also keep the land that Elimelech had, and his present sons would not get that land because that still belongs to Ruth's first husband's family and goes down into her sons because that keeps her husband's name alive. So maybe he just didn't want to mess up everything by doing that. It's possible. He didn't want his children to get in a big fight about it. But either way, he decides that he's not going to redeem Ruth. And this clears the way for Boaz to become the true kinsman redeemer of Ruth. Pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. And the interesting thing about this particular transaction, let's say, is this is where the redemption took place. This is it. Nothing fancy here, okay? Reminds me of the fact that we all celebrate Easter, which is Christ's resurrection, and we should celebrate that. But let's face it, folks, it was Good Friday that the work was done. That's where the transaction was made. That's where Jesus gave up his life for ours. And that's coming up, isn't it? Today is Thursday of Holy Week when I'm speaking. And so tomorrow will be that day that transaction takes place. And that is pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. So we're going to recall that tomorrow. And even though it's sad, there's a glory there as well, isn't there? And even though this is just a small little thing of him making this transaction, one sandal handed to another man, almost we could skip right over it when we're reading it. But when we look back at it, we think, hey, that's the redemption. That's the redemption right there. That transaction. So, that's all for today. And tomorrow, I think we will be able to finish the story of Ruth, either tomorrow or Saturday. Sunday, I'm going to take a break. And then Monday, maybe I'll start a new study of some kind. I don't know. I've had some friends ask me about some possible topics, so we'll see. Anyway, hope you have a great day, and remember your redemption, because it's such an important thing.